There appears to be a number of people who don't like seeing videos about 3D printing. Quite honestly, 2 years ago, I never expected to have a 3D printer. But after being kept out of the shop because of shoulder surgery last year, I started playing with these and learning more and more about them. The longer I have it, the more I find I can do with it. And on Saturday, November the 2nd, we returned to the Mini Calliope project. I used the 3D printer to make a lot of jigs and fixtures and parts for that Mini Calliope. Halloween is tomorrow. This and a couple of other projects is what I've been doing to entertain myself for the last couple of weeks. This is a Halloween themed useless box or leave me alone box where the skeleton comes out and appears to turn the switch off. And I had quite a few problems printing him, kept breaking his arms off. So after 6 or more attempts, this is what I did to strengthen the arms. This is a skeleton from the Rust in Peace project that you can find the files for on Thingiverse. This guy's kind of fragile. In my case, when I was trying to print this horizontal, the print head would come by and it would snap off some of these ribs and stuff. And to take care of that problem, I put him on an incline, and when I printed this, the ribs were then vertical, and I used Z-Hop, and it quit breaking those off. You do get a bit of stringing when you do stuff like that. This arm is printed in layers, and you end up with all these laminations in here, and even if I soak this with super glue, it's quite easy to break that off. To solve that problem, using my Foredom grinder and a saw blade, I ground this notch through here, and using a long straight pin, I bent that straight pin so it would fit down in here. I'll put epoxy in here and embed that straight pin, put a little more epoxy on the outside, let that cure, and come back and grind it off. And when this is in the project, you're not going to be able to see that anyway, and I'll touch that up with a little white paint. And then the forearm, it was also pretty laminated and fragile. So again, I put it on supports and printed it horizontal, and the laminations are now this way, and it's a lot stronger. And that will get glued on like that. When the epoxy is cured, I grind this off and smooth everything up. If there's any bare spots on the wire, I put a little more epoxy on there and grind it again. And I took the saw blade and ground a notch here at the forearm, bent that wire in there to fit into that notch. When the natural alignment of the anatomy that's in the STL file, when this prints, when that's lined up, and then that wire is in that notch, that makes this very strong. After the super glue dries, I come back in here and fill this with epoxy and a little bit around here and on the inside of the arm, and that makes this quite strong. I broke several of these in the process of making them, and I'd be in here trying to clean this up and I'd snap this arm off. So once this is epoxied and before the forearm is attached, and you can go in here and clean up a little bit of stringing and some of the globs that are left behind by the printhead when it Z-hops up and down. But then sometimes there's stuff in here I still can't get. So I went in here with a hot air gun and very carefully, gingerly heated this up to melt those little strings. And you got to be careful because this will get real spongy. But in my case, I would just hold this, let it cool off, and everything returned to its normal position. When you put this in the coffin and get the mechanism, get all the gears in place, and you try this mechanism and it comes up, you'll find out if this is going to clear the sides of the coffin. And if it doesn't, it's not a big deal. Just warm this up with a hot air gun very carefully and lift up on that slightly and let it cool. Maybe I'm just too rough, but when you're putting this together, pushing these gears into place and screwing everything together and working on the wiring, it's real easy to bump into this thing and break it. So I was a lot happier once I figured out a good way to reinforce this. The Happy Ghost and the Walking Pumpkin are two more of his designs. These are accurate, well-designed projects. The Walking T-Rex model is one of his latest designs, highly animated, and everyone I've shown this to really enjoys it. And this is the type of thing you simply cannot participate in without a 3D printer, and it doesn't have to be terribly expensive.